We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. Do that, we'll be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. It is another great week, another great time to have a great show here with Football University with the greatest fans ever. I'm Matt Caddell, former Alabama wide receiver. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Football University. Shouts out to the student section, part of those greatest fans. Getting the student section, which we call our comment section, because we are Football University. I try to be your de facto. Professor, as well as just giving you good observations, commentary. We got a great, exciting show planned for tonight. We're going to discuss everything. Listen, we're going to discuss everything football related, maybe getting some different things, NCAA, obviously Alabama football, breaking news, Alabama football updates. Spring training is going to be happening soon. So we're going to discuss it. Even the NFL draft, we're going to get into some NFL combine news as well. So just want to get it started. So shouts out to the student section, Roll Tide, RTR, Joe Stapleton. Please get your comments, all your football questions, comments, whatever. I'll leave it up to you guys for different topics. Well, in the meantime, in between time, RTR, tell a friend, RTR. So let's get it started. My first topic, I want to shout out to the Alabama football. So, I know Coach KD finalized his staff. I know we mentioned last week the addition of Robertson, the outside linebackers coach, losing Ends to Tennessee. I thought that was an upgrade. Obviously moving Nick Sheridan to offensive coordinator. They announced Jamarcus Shepard. Freddie Rose Gillespie. I think he has a really good staff. And today he mentioned that biggest news. I think it broke about an hour or 30 minutes ago. They announced that Coach Hirschler as well as Mo Lindquist are the co-defensive coordinators. Coach Hirschler, we know, comes from Wisconsin. That would be huge for us because I think week 3 before our bye week, before we play Georgia, we go to Wisconsin. I think that's going to be a pretty big-time road game, a good road test for us. I think that's going to determine how the season for us, not all in all, but I think it's going to be a good test for us to see how we're going to be effective moving forward, getting into SEC play. I know we start with Western Kentucky, then we have South Florida at home, and then I believe we go to Wisconsin and we have a bye week, and I believe we have Georgia coming in on September 28th. So that's going to be good. But having Coach Herschler as a defensive backs coach, he has a lot of familiarity with Coach KD. When I mention Coach KD, I'm talking about Coach Kalen DeBoer, who's the new head coach at Alabama. And, they worked together in the past when they were at Indiana. So Coach Herschler, I think, brings a lot from some of his statements. He said he understands the winning tradition here at the University of Alabama. I think we got some really good young guys that are really good and successful. So I'm excited about Coach Herschler. I think he's going to be mainly the co-D coordinator working on the safeties in Coach Womack's 4-2-5 defense. It's going to be pretty exciting. And one thing I would love to say about Coach Herschler, listen, he had two names that I think that's going to resonate with a lot of recruits, a lot of fan bases if they don't know about this guy. Before him being at Wisconsin, he was the secondary coach at Cincinnati. So when you mention Cincinnati, if you look back, our history with Cincinnati, we played them in the college football playoff. They had one of the top cornerbacks coming off the board, and a guy named Sauce Gardner, who's developed by Coach Herschler. So I know he brings a lot of pedigree, a lot of just, development of defensive backs, cornerbacks, secondary as a whole, as well as Kobe Bryant, who was another impressive safety for the Cincinnati Bearcats under the leadership of Luke Fickell. And he got drafted, I believe, to the Seattle Seahawks, and he's been a starter ever since. So he knows what he's doing as far as developing safeties, secondary. So I'm excited to have Coach Herschler. I think him kind of knowing Luke Fickell, what he's going to try to do offensively, is going to be good for us when we go up to Madison, Wisconsin, that third game of the season. So before I get into the section, so another announcement was Coach Mo Linguist, Maurice Linguist. He was the head football coach at Buffalo. Another reason why I love Coach KD's staff. He's able to get head coaches at programs to be coordinators and co-DCs. Like, that doesn't come too often. So I think this is a huge get for Coach KD. But getting Coach Mo Linguist, you're getting a coach who's the head coach at Buffalo. Now he's going to be the cornerbacks coach, co-D coordinator here at Alabama. And he's had stints with the Dallas Cowboys, some guys like that. So he knows, been at pro level, been at the head coaching collegiate level. I think he's going to bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to that secondary room, as well as recruiting. I heard he's got a lot of ties to Texas. That's going to be beneficial. And I think one thing Coach KD's looking for is a great fit for his staff. A lot of people are just looking at the big names and who's out there, but I think Coach KD was made him so successful, having such a winning percentage, coming to Alabama, wanting to be at the University of Alabama. This speaks volumes, I think, to the fit for him. Having Coach Mo brings a lot to the program. So, I think this is going to be great. He has ties to the SEC, whether it was Texas A&M, Mississippi State. So I think it's going to be great for us. So just want to highlight those announcements, having Coach Herschler as well as Coach Mo, Mo Linguist, solidify that secondary position for us. So it's going to be exciting. So let's get to the student section. You guys are rocking and rolling. Let's see. Shouts out to B Jammin. Shouts out to Jeff Saban. And shouts out to Lori Caddell. Hit me with your comments in the student section. So let's go right here. Let's get to some NFL talk. I like to let the student section, I like to let you all rock and roll. How do you think Bryce will do next season? I actually think Bryce will do amazing next season. I think the NFC South division, I'm going to start broad and then kind of narrow it down. think the NFC South division is up for grabs. I know the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield won the division. It's going to be, I know the Atlanta Falcons, I know we got a lot of Rise Up fans out there. I know they hired Raheem Morris. But they're still kind of still in I still think playing in mud, still spitting tires in mud. I still think until they address the quarterback situation, I have heard rumors of possibly, maybe, let's see, Russell Wilson possibly. But I think they have the number 6 or 7 pick. It's going to be some quarterbacks. I have heard Jaden Daniels smoke. I mean, personally, I don't know if Jaden Daniels still going to be on the board. You're looking at a Bo Nix. Caleb Williams probably comes off the board first. You're hearing a lot of smoke about Drake May. Jaden Daniels is kind of being your top 3. Then you add Bo Nix, kind of that 4th guy. Do they want a Bo Nix, or is there somebody in free agency that they might want? You never know. So I think bring it back, the Saints, I think, they brought in a new OC. They still got Derek Carr. I mean, I don't know but Bryce Young, getting the offensive coordinator, David Canales, as his head coach, an offensive, young-minded guy. You see what he done with Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield. I mean, look what he did with Baker Mayfield, and just imagine what he's going to do with Bryce Young. I think I know they changed front office. They got rid of Scott Fitterer. I think he brought in his own guy. So I'm looking to see Carolina Panthers really take a jump. And if you watch Bryce Young last year, it was not his fault. Bryce Young was actually wheeling and dealing, but he didn't have any help. He probably had the worst offensive line, and his receivers were dropping balls left and right. So I think if you give him a running back, obviously you want to establish up front in the trenches. Maybe you can do that free agency, especially on the offensive side. But if you get 2 good solid guards, tackles, get some guys late, really good developmental guys, but really get a running game, really get some receivers, weapons. Mike Evans is going to hit the free agency. Maybe they drop the bag for Mike Evans. Bryce Young, he just needs some really talent. I think Bryce is going to make a huge step. And like I said, I don't know if the Saints are going to be truly in the division. Falcons, it depends on what they're going to do at the quarterback. But I think with Canales, Bryce Young, the offensive mind, getting talent, I think is going to be a great position for Carolina to really seize on this division and possibly get in the playoffs. So that's my take on the Carolina Panthers. So I see we got the Falcons fans rise up. We'll talk later about the Falcons mentioning the NFL draft, Alabama players, and the NFL Combine up in Indianapolis. We will discuss it here shortly. So let's get back to it. B. Jamin has a great comment. He says, Matt, do you feel this Bama team will find their identity before or after the UGA game? I mentioned earlier when I was mentioning Coach Horschler, him coming from Wisconsin, how we had to play Wisconsin that 3rd game. I think we'll kind of find it probably that 3rd game, having to go on the road in a tough environment, going to Madison, Wisconsin, probably be a top 25 matchup, on the road, new coach, having to play on the road, loud atmosphere. They know how to rock up there in Madison, Wisconsin. Everybody brings their A game when Alabama comes to play. So it's going to be a good experience. I think we're going to see how we're going to be. So I think I'm going to say it's going to happen, before the UGA game, because it's going to have to happen. We're going to have to be buttoned up. Georgia's probably going to be the number 1 team in the country. I saw football odds for the SEC. I think Texas has 5-2 odds. I think Alabama's tied with, I believe, LSU or Tennessee is 9-1 odds to win the SEC. So, I think Alabama's going to have their identity leading up to Georgia game. I think we have Georgia week 3, then we have a bye week, and then no, not Georgia week. We have Georgia week 4, but we have Wisconsin week 3, and I think, playing Western Kentucky at home, then playing South Florida, then having that big-time road game, I think that's going to help us with an identity. I think South Florida's no pushover. They're going to be coming ready to rock and roll. And Western Kentucky, those schools, you have to come prepared, so they're not going to be a pushover. And so with the young and inexperienced, with some of the youthfulness, the new faces, it's going to take a lot to kind of mold. So I think we'll start clicking by week 3, going in before that Georgia game. So hopefully to answer your question, great question, B. Jamming. I think Alabama will find their identity in that Wisconsin game. So let's see. So let's go to my next topic. I mentioned how Alabama is. We had the coaching announcements of Coach Herschler, Mo Lindquist, and another thing, Alabama football. They're prime in the offseason. You know, being a former player, being able offseason fourth quarter program is pretty intense. So I love seeing the accessibility Coach KD has. I'm not used to having a coach that's on Twitter and usually just the assistant coaches. But I think he's smart with it. You know, he loves to talk about his players and his coaches, and I think that's good. But yeah, and I'm loving to seeing the tweets that are coming out from Alabama football. Another one showing them hitting the fourth quarter program pretty hard, you know, and I think spring training is what's next week. So I'm excited to see how spring training is going to happen. You know, I think part of your question, B. Jamming, finding that identity, having to, you know, just basically see, you know, new terminology, new communication, you know, what coaches want, what players want, new defense. Like I said, Coach Womack is doing the 4-2-5, getting guys in the Husky position, so many different positions, different practice squad styles. So it's going to be a lot of nuances, but I think the same thing's going to be the same thing. I think it's going to be a little learning curve, but I think it's going to be for the better. I think it's going to really help us be you know, successful in the future. But that being said, you know, offense, we're going to be installing a new offense as well. So I'm excited to see what we are going to do from the offensive perspective. And that leads me to my next topic. You know, position battles. Obviously, we got to start with quarterbacks. I think this quarterback position is for Milroe to lose. I think he's going to get first dibs at it. I just want to make sure that Milroe is putting in the work. When I say the work, I'm talking about preparation, being a student of this playbook, really getting in, like knowing this playbook left and right. You know, really building that rapport with the receivers. I said this last week, and I said this a few episodes back, even after we beat Georgia in the SEC championship. I believe a couple of days later, that next Monday, I said it is important between here and Alabama playing the Rose Bowl and bowl prep that it's important that Jalen Milroe takes this time to really accelerate his game, take it to the next level. I'm talking about getting rapport with the receivers, getting timing down, working on those things, because that's what's going to take us to win a national championship. Obviously, those things did not happen, and it showed on the field in the Rose Bowl. So, like I said, I think Milroe's going to get first dibs at it. But like I said, he's still got to work on his footwork. Like, he needs to be getting with the quarterback coach, trying to understand just the quarterback mechanics, especially if his goal is to go to the NFL. NFL GMs, head coaches want to know, they kind of don't want a project. So you got to already have some type of you've got to have some type of, you know, wherewithal, whether it's some type of football IQ, especially in the QB. They want to see how cerebral you are. Can you read defenses? Can you draw up how to affect certain defenses? Like, you have to be a student, to my main point. So if Milroe continues to do that, I think he'll be fine, but he's just got to focus on that. Don't focus on length. Don't focus on any of that stuff. None of that stuff matters, because at the end of the day, we need somebody to fly this jet. You know, I mentioned this I'm a huge Top Gun fan, and I always talk about how running this offense with all the weaponry. I mean, we got Justice Haynes, Jan Miller, Richard Young, just in the backfield, Daniel Hill. We got tight ends left and right. We got Caleb Odom, who's the former tight end, moving the receiver, Hollywood Williams. Like, we have so many weapons and such a creative playbook. You're gonna have to know this offense left and right. Like, it's gonna you cannot be kind of babied into running the offense. Like, you should know the checks, how to pre-snap, how to manage the pocket, how not to turn the ball over, how to facilitate the ball accurately. Like, it should be repetitious for you. So I think the quarterback who does that will succeed. Like I said, I think Milroy gets first dibs at it. But listen, you got Ty Simpson out there. He's always working on his craft, grinding. I'm quite sure he's put in work with receivers. Him, Dylan Lonergan as well as Austin Mack. So I feel like we upgraded the quarterback room with competition. I feel like Ty Simpson's going to be a lot better. I feel like Dylan Lonergan is going to be a lot better. And, Coach DeBoer did not bring in Austin Mack just for any type of reason. So it's going to be they're going to push each other. And listen, the quarterback who does it the best, they're going to play. You got Jamarcus Shepard, Co-OC. I know Coach Katie said he'll play the guy's strengths and things like that, but at the same time, he wants somebody who's a student of the game. He wants somebody who's a leader of the offense. Like, what are you doing with the offense? Are you working with your receivers? And I'm going to give you a personal example. When I was at Alabama or in high school in general, I always had the greatest relationship with my quarterback because, hey, you want to go throw some balls, run some routes? All right, cool. I'll see you there. Like, that's the type of quarterback you want. So if you put in the work in the offseason, that's what pays off. Like, just don't do it. Like, you need to be putting in the work because I can guarantee you Ty Simpson's putting in the work. I always see videos of him throwing the balls daily, working on his craft. Like, I'm quite sure he's throwing the ball to receivers. Dylan Lonergan, Austin Mack. Those are the type of quarterback, and it shows in the QB room. So, it's going to be interesting, good competition. I mentioned the quarterbacks. It's going to be a big-time position battle. Like I said, I do think it's Milroy's job, but I think he's just got to go out there and prove it, make it happen. So, I talked about the quarterback position. I mentioned the running backs. I think we're kind of good on the running backs. I mean, like I mentioned, I think the top four guys outside of Daniel Hill not having much experience, I think Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, that combination is going to be lethal. And then having a Richard Young, we're going to be able to be run the ball, be effective. Now, I think running back will be fine. Now, I mentioned tight ends. We got Cuervos from Washington. You got Lockwood. We got some other guys at the tight end position. Now, Caleb Odom, he tweeted out last week saying how he's a wide receiver now. I mean, 6'5", 6'6" guy running about a 4.5. I mean, look at his high school tape. He was basically a wide receiver. But I mean, you look at what Washington, their history. You look at Romeo Oduzier. It's going to probably be the third receiver off the board in the first round this year. You can make parallels with him and Romeo Oduzier, but I think Caleb Odom's going to be that ultimate chess piece on the offense, whether, you can put him inside, line him up on a safety or outside linebacker or a defensive end. There's so many. I think he's going to be the ultimate, multiple chess piece that you can move around guys around. So it's going to be exciting. So like that tight end competition is going to be really good, but I think we're going to be good at the tight end. So, but another position I want to talk about is offensive line. Now, we lost Caden Proctor to Iowa. We lost J.C. Latham, so we got to get 2 tackles. So, we got the transfer from Texas A&M. He's just another big body. It's going to be interesting to see what Coach Cap does with him. And I mentioned Coach Cap, he's the new offensive line coach. But I think one thing we're good, we're solidified up front, with the depth. You look at Bradford, probably the top center in college football last year, the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line there at Washington. He's coming down to Tuscaloosa. It's good to see him stay in Tuscaloosa with Coach KD. He'll probably be at center. I think that's an upgrade for us from Seth McLaughlin. And I think, you look at guard, tackle, Jaden Roberts, Booker. I mean, two guards. I mean, that's probably the best guards center combo in the country. So, right, we just got to get our tackles right now. Elijah Pritchard has some experience. Look at it, Wilkin Fombury, Olas Alanin, Rock Montgomery, Miles McVay. I think we can do a lot on the offensive line just from what I've seen the guys that we had. So that's going to be really good competition. Now, before I switch to the defensive side, let's go to the student section. Let's see. Shouts out to Matt Caddell. He says, do you think NIL will hurt Alabama recruiting? We are pretty old school. I mean, it's just the nature of the game. I don't think Alabama is just the only school that maybe NIL would hurt, but I do think, you look at guys, you look at schools. I think we've kind of seen this before. You look at schools like Ohio State, they just spending buku millions and millions of dollars on NIL. They got NIL that allegedly they spent $3 million for Caleb Downs, all these big times recruit, but it's going to be interesting. I don't think Alabama is going to hurt. I mean, it can give it hurt. You can't hurt you. Now, it's going to be interesting to see. Now, when you had Coach Saban, a lot of players were like, hey, you hear people talk about the Saban discount, where maybe they would take lesser money just to go to Alabama because it's Alabama. And, I mean, you're going to make your money, in the NFL or just in the program, period. So I still think Alabama has that type of persona, that brand that, it might hurt some because you got a new coach. But I think one thing about getting a younger coach and Coach Kalen DeBoer, I feel like we have upgraded we have upgraded so much in the Bama collective, Alabama, and learn how to navigate this NIL culture. And you got to have younger coaches that know how to handle the NIL. So, it might hurt some, but it's gonna hurt a lot of schools as well, not just only Alabama. It's gonna help schools just like it's gonna help and hurt other schools as well. So hopefully that answers your question. But like you said, Alabama is old school, and I just think Alabama has that name where you get that offer, you're like, man, you're looking at that roster, you're looking at that depth chart, you're like, man, I could. A lot of times the grass is not greener in NIL or getting in the transfer portal. So, listen, now it's some guys that I'm quite sure they probably, money is cool, get it. It's probably good for instant gratification, but long term, I think, you kind of make your bed, show what type of character you have. And, I get it, guys getting paid crazy amount of money. But it is what it is now. The NIL area, the NIL arena that we live in now with the transfer portal, it's the Wild Wild West. I mean, it's going to be crazy. You're going to hear crazy numbers like Ohio State, but we've seen this before. Look at Texas A&M, what they did a couple years back, and we know what Jimbo Fisher, Coach Saban, and them going back and forth, and in press conferences in the offseason. But what did that give? What did that get Jimbo Fisher? Excuse me, and Texas A&M. They paid all that NIL money, and what did that get? Did it give them a national championship? Did they even win the SEC? Did they get a playoff berth? Like, no, none of that happened. They didn't even win the SEC West. So it's going to be interesting to see, excuse me, how Ohio State handles all this, just writing crazy checks amount of money. What type of player are you getting? Are you going to get a player that's so hungry? That's always my question. Like, are you going to go as hard? Are you going to have the same discipline? Are you going to have the type of characteristics to go out there and dominate regardless? How does it handle the locker room? You're going to have different egos. Hey, this guy has a Ferrari and a Lambo, and I'm over here in my Honda Civic. Like, how does that having that hierarchy and in the locker room, how are you going to get guys to buy into, hey, we have camaraderie. You're my brother. We're going to get better. So I think locker rooms who have that tend to be the best ones. So it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully that answers your question. So let's get in the student section. Shouts out to Brian Green. He says, I believe Washington line wasn't the world beaters people claim. Penix Jr. didn't hold the ball long. I mean, I get it, but I mean, you might not say they were world beaters, but they were the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. So that goes to the best offensive line in college football. So, I mean, I don't know where you're getting at, but I mean, I think what they were pretty good. I mean, they got like 2 first rounders coming off the board in this year's draft. With Coach Huff, the offensive line coach, he was going to be our offensive line. So they had a really, really good offensive line. I don't know who had a better offensive line in college football last year. So they were good. They were very, very good offensive line. I think they probably, like I said, Bradford probably gave up a few sacks. Now, I think what you're trying to say, Brian Green, thanks for the comment. You're talking about quarterback play. I guess you're comparing Michael Penix Jr. to Jalen Milroe, and now Michael Penix Jr. is a really, really good quarterback. Now, me personally, I think he's probably QB 4 or 5. Like I'm like, maybe I'll take him over Bo Nix. I don't know, but it's just I'm not a GM. I'll give you my quarterback rankings next week. So, but yeah, great comment. Now, I think you're talking about Milroe holding on to the ball too long. Now, I will say this. That's something Milroe's got to get ironed out. He's got to be able to, help the offensive line, being able to read the defense, see what the defense gives. I think a lot of times, to your point, Brian Green, Milroe kind of already had his mind made up of where he was going to go with the ball prior to the ball being snapped. And I think when he didn't see that, he would hold on to the ball too long. Now, granted, our offensive line wasn't the best. We gave up plenty of sacks. I think we're 125th in sacks. And he was getting a lot of bad snaps, especially in the Rose Bowl game. So I think if we can cut a half, maybe 75% of those sacks, I think you'll see a better quarterback play. But, I think it's a lot of things the quarterback, to your point, Brian Green, that he's got to be able to be a little bit quicker in his footwork, reading the defense, knowing his reads, knowing where to go and hot routes, things like that. So great comment. Brian Green. I was taking it to Milroe. So great comment right there. So I'm going to come back to, let's get to Brian Green. I love his comments. I wasn't thinking of Milroe. I was just saying a line doesn't have to hold blocks long when a QB gets rid of it quickly. That's what I'm saying. Now I was bringing up Milroe because he does kind of hold on the ball a long time at times. So he's got to be able to get rid of the ball, whether it's a bad snap. Oh, I got the check down, the running back, all those things. I still think, some of those sacks he probably could have avoided is all I'm saying. Now, I think those are the things he's got to continue to develop, get better at this spring because, listen, the learning curve is even that much harder because now you have a new offense, new coordinator, new head coach, new system, new terminology. You got to learn all those things, new offensive line at the tackle position. So you really got to go over and beyond when it comes to this quarterback play. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying we just got to see improvement from Jalen Milroe, Brian Green. So hopefully that answers your comment. Y'all are rocking and rolling. I love the student section. Shouts out to Brian Green. Let's see. He says, we had Derrick Henry also. Yeah, we did have Derrick Henry. So I think you're talking about, that national championship where, Jay Coker at quarterback, we beat Clemson, a Darius Student. We had a Darius Student at receiver. We had a physical brand of football up front, both on the offensive line, defensive line. I mean, that defense, Reggie Ragland, Reuben Foster, believe Jonathan Allen, all those guys, Jared Reed, Rashawn Evans. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Minka Fitzpatrick. We just had so many NFL guys on that defense. You look offensive line. I mean, excuse me, I think we had Kelly. We had so many guys offensively. But listen, I think to your point, we want to run the ball. I think we're going to be physical. You look at our running back room, you got Jam Miller, you have Justice Haynes, who's the second coming of Marshall Faulk. And I say Marshall Faulk because he can beat you in the passing game. He can beat you in the running game. He can beat you all over. So, and I think we have Richard Young, who's just even that much more dynamic. So, it's going to be interesting. So I think it's important we run the ball. I think we're going to be able to do that. And I think, Coach Saban's going to show KD how to kind of, it's good to put up points and score all these points, but in order to win playoff games and tougher competition in the SEC, you got to be able to run the ball. So I think that's going to be important. I think Coach Saban's going to kind of let them know about those things. You can put up all these points and everything, but you win the game by running the ball and making plays offensively. So y'all are rocking and rolling. Let's go to the next comment. Let's see. Lord Caddell says Bama causes players to think about NIL versus NFL. I think if you want NFL possibility, then go to Alabama. I mean, I agree. I mean, Alabama's brand notoriety. I mean, all eyes are on Alabama. I know you look at ESPN, for instance, they're talking about storming the court, right? And, the big news, I believe, storming the court's kind of been controversial, supposedly controversial. But to me, that's what makes college basketball so unique. I think it was the big story because I believe Wake Forest beat Duke over the weekend, and reportedly the Duke player got trampled or whatnot. I know an incident happened with Caitlin Clark out of Iowa a couple weeks back. And so now people are saying, oh, we shouldn't storm the court. Even Greg Byrne, the Alabama athletic director, had some interesting take on storming the field or whatnot. But I'm saying all this that you look at ESPN and they were talking about the storming the court issue, but they was always showing Alabama games when Alabama loses in football games, how teams storm the field. I'm like, to me, that's what separates Alabama. Alabama is such a big brand that when teams beat Alabama, i.e. Tennessee or Ole Miss a few years back or Auburn a few years back, they're going to storm the field. So, to me, I think you have to look at Alabama's brand, and we discussed the NIL. I think Alabama brand alone separates Alabama from a lot of schools. Like, at the end of the day, it's in the SEC. Alabama's still the premier brand. They historically have been, you can say they're like the Yankees or whatever, but that's how, or the Lakers, that's how Alabama football is. And so you're looking at development, you're looking at that track record of the NFL. I mean, you look at the staff Coach KD has brought in, you look at the players. I mean, you can make it deal with what yourself. And I think a lot of other programs who don't have that Alabama mantra or carry that much weight, they have to spend money to kind of offset, all the talent going to Alabama. So they'll say, we'll write you a check. So, but to your point, do you think Alabama, you have to think NIL. I mean, you have to think brand, me playing on national TV all the time. So I think all that goes a long way. And then looking at the development, Alabama is second to none. I think it's going to be the same with Coach KD. So interesting, great point right there. Y'all are rocking and rolling. Let's see what y'all are talking about. Let's see. Brian Green says loses the rest of the field. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to do that in Alabama. We're not going to rush the field in Alabama. That's not our AMO. We might do it in basketball maybe, but I don't even see us doing it in basketball because we've been crushing it in basketball. So Stephen Hicks says, I'm looking forward to a new era of excellence to begin. And I agree with it. Let's take a pause right there. I'm so glad, I'm looking back at it, how Coach Saban retired. He didn't have this big farewell tour or, he just kind of did it. had it, sent out a memo to Chris Lowe, and it kind of went out. He did a quick press conference, and it was done. They were on to the next coach. You know, Craig Byrne was in Seattle, Washington, trying to get Coach Kalen DeBoer to Tuscaloosa, and he did that. So one thing I love about us having this new era of Alabama, it's like we have our own identity. You know, it was so much Alabama was, oh, Coach Saban, Coach Saban, Coach Saban, you know. And I think that helped the identity of other schools. You know, you look at Georgia, it's all basically whatever Saban did. You look at Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, it's all what Saban did. You look at who else? Billy Napier at Florida is kind of basically the model of all of Saban did. So you look at Texas, Sarkisian's the model of what Saban did. So, you know, I'm kind of glad we kind of got Coach Katie. We kind of have our own identity, uniqueness. So when we do win and when we do win the Natty, it's just Bama still being dominant under Coach Katie. So I am excited about that. And to your point, Stephen Hicks, I am excited about the new era of excellence to begin at Alabama. It's going to be interesting because I believe we have – I think this season sets up for us to make it happen, starting with spring ball here shortly. So let's get to the student section. Y'all are rolling in the chat. Farrell Caddell has another one. He says, we don't want to lose our values and morals. Saban kept it clean. Great answer. Saban knows how to run the show. He is when the NIL decision came down a few years back, Coach Saban basically said, this is going to be NFL free agency. Is this what y'all want us to be? And, whenever Saban makes a statement on something, so funny, all the backlash he gets, but he's so right. It's like he understands, especially coming from the NFL, where it's strictly business. You have transactional, dealing with money. You have a salary cap. But now in college football, you do not have any guidelines. And let's talk about this. Like, Saban's able to handle it in the NIL era, but at the same time, we've gotten younger with a new coach who's kind of embraced NIL and knows what's best for Alabama. Listen, we were able to get Ron Williams, and I'm quite sure Auburn was throwing crazy $1 million at him. I heard at one point maybe $6 million, from some Auburn fans, which I think is crazy. I don't think that bodes well for a locker room. This guy's over there. I mentioned earlier in my example. This guy's in a Lambo, Ferrari, and I'm in this Honda Civic. What type of what I think that all that does is creates a sense of entitlement, especially with the transfer portal. Oh man, I'm not getting playing time. I can just get up and leave. Like, what type of character are we building? Like, what type of young men, young ladies are we developing in college football? And I think the NCAA they passed NIL, but they didn't put any parameters. That's why I think the NCAA will be no longer, probably sooner than later. I think you look at what Greg Sankey is doing. They're kind of already having I don't want to say alliance for all you Office fans, but kind of an advisory committee with the Big Ten. The Big Ten and the SEC are kind of the biggest players in college football. So you got to think NFL, not NFL, but you got to think it's going to be more expansion. I've heard rumors of, maybe a Virginia coming into the SEC. I've heard Clemson and Florida State. You're looking at the Big Ten. They expanded into the Pac-12. They took USC, UCLA. I believe they took Oregon as well. And, you kind of thinking like, I think with this advisory committee, I think you're going to see the NCAA kind of have lesser and lesser power in the courts. They just lost an injunction to Tennessee and Virginia this past week. I just think that the bigger these conferences become, the more of these advisory committees, and they're going to create their own rules. I think you're looking at the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to create their own rules. They're going to create you might have a commissioner. It might be Coach Saban. They're going to have, probably a salary cap. You can only spend so much money on a player. You're going to have all that stuff. They're going to manage the transfer portal window. You're probably going to have one signing period. You only won't have as many transfer portal windows. So they're going to create their own rules where the NCAA won't have any power. So I don't see the NCAA having maybe 2 more years that much power. I just think it's going to be on these big-time conferences, especially led by the SEC. So great comments right there. Let's stay in the chat. Y'all are rocking and rolling. Great comment right here. B Jamin, great comment, says, Matt, who are your top 5 SEC teams pick? I'm picking Bama, UGA, Texas, Ole Miss. Eddie says Mizzou. Oh, wow. Like I said, I looked at the odds earlier today. I think the odds were, I think Georgia had the best odds. Georgia had the best odds. Okay, SEC title all odds, and this is from betonline.org for the conference championship in 2024. Georgia has the best odds, 2-1. Texas, 5-2. Ole Miss, 13-2. And Alabama and Tennessee are tied, 9-1 odds. And they're saying LSU, 10-1. Missouri, 11-1. Texas A&M. So, to your point, B Jamin, I'm going to say, obviously, Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss, Texas, I'm still kind of, I don't know, because the reason I think Texas is a little high, they haven't played an SEC schedule yet. They don't know. They're losing a lot. Like, their team last year was probably one of the oldest teams in college football. They had a lot of juniors and a lot of seniors. And they lost a lot of that production. Now, they have a lot offensively, but I was watching them last year, and they were barely beating teams like Kansas State and Kansas and all this stuff. So I think Texas is a little bit more hype, especially coming into the SEC. Listen, you got to do it week in, week out. Like, I just don't see it. And they have to play Georgia, I believe. Like, I definitely see them probably losing that game possibly, especially with Carson Beck. So I will maybe put Texas and Missouri right now. I'm going to say Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, my top 2. Texas, I'm kind of still iffy on, but I do like
Missouri. LSU, they're always going to be tough, but I don't know what LSU's quarterback situation is going to be. They lost a lot of production on the offensive side. Lost Mikael Neighbors, they lost Brian Thomas and Jay Daniels. So that's kind of their big 3 offensively. So, right now, I don't know if I can name 5. I don't know. I just don't want to put Texas in there because I don't know how they're going to handle the SEC. Like, this is not the Big 12. This is the SEC. Like, you're going to be going against tough teams. So I just think it's going to be Bama. Right now, I think my top 3 teams are Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss that I can think of right now. Tennessee, I don't know. They're bringing in a new quarterback, Limavela. Missouri, they're returning a lot, so I might give the nod to Missouri and probably a tie between Texas and Tennessee. That's my top 5. Let me know y'all's top 5 in the chat. Stephen Hicks says, Bama will contend for the SEC championship. If not rolling with us, you're getting rolled over. That's what I'm talking about. Let's see. Great comment. Brian Green says, Ryan Williams reminds me of Smitty. I love Ryan Williams. I think he's one of the probably more prolific guys coming out of high school. I mean, he's just a dynamic, explosive player, speed, explosiveness. You got to get this guy touches. I mean, even Coach KD, Kalen DeBoer, Jamarcus Shepard, they were on Yay, Alabama. They were just raving about Ryan Williams, how Ryan Williams talked with the coaches all the time, daily. I'm quite sure he's getting in the lab, getting in the playbook. So Ryan Williams, he does remind me of Smitty, but he reminds me of a Smitty with the explosiveness of like I'm gonna say explosiveness of like a Jalen Waddle, but the size of a Smitty. You get what I'm saying? Like Smitty was just so smooth with it, but he was explosive, but I just think, man, you look at Smitty, you look at Ryan Williams, he has that Smitty pedigree. I think he has the explosiveness of a Waddle, kind of with a little Judy in him, just route running. I just think he has it all. He might be the ultimate. So I love that comment right there by Brian Green. I'm interested to see that. I want to get other people's comparison for Ryan Williams. Stephen Hicks, let's go back up and says, Saban saw the crap show college football was becoming. He went out a legend. Like, I think that had something to do with it. And I think also, to your point, Stephen Hicks, that, NIL, it was no control. It's just, we're creating these sense of entitlement players and families. They just want more money when, I think it's just like, to your point, it is a crap show. But I don't think that's what ultimate turn Saban was. I think that had something to do with it. And I think Coach Saban not being able to, he was 72 years old. He wasn't able to put an exact, give an exact timeline of how long he was going to be coaching, because the conversations were getting tougher and tougher with him and recruits and players. So I think he just found out that, he did so great things this year. He got to the playoff and he was like, listen, it is what it is. I'm going to go out and leave Alabama in better hands. And Alabama got younger. And that was always the biggest issue. As Coach Saban was 70-some years. He's, 20, 30 years older than the next coach. I mean, you look at Kirby, I think he's probably 50-something. Lane Kiffin's pretty young, Sark. So a lot of the coaches in the SEC were pretty young. Looking at Beamer at South Carolina, Alabama needed to get younger, and we got younger under Coach Kalen DeBoer. So great comments right there. Let's keep going. Y'all are rocking and rolling. Let's see. Stephen, I love Stephen Hicks. He's always taking shots at the Vols. My Alabama Crimson Tide will beat the Vols Tards behind at their house. Yeah, we go up to Knoxville. That's going to be a challenging game. Vol fans, the only thing they care about is beating Alabama. Like, that's the only thing they care about. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think us having to play Wisconsin on the road, and obviously playing Georgia in such an early test, I think that's going to play out for us. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. So it's going to be interesting, but I want Alabama to beat the Vols. I'm just saying it's just a tough, especially how they beat us last year. And they're already bragging about how they I guess sent Coach Saban into retirement. And I'm like, what? Okay, whatever you guys say. Whatever you guys say. So I had their schedule pulled up. Alabama schedule. Where is it? I have it right here. Okay. So Alabama schedule, start with WKU, Western Kentucky, South Florida, Wisconsin. Then we got Georgia. Then we go at Vandy. Then we got South Carolina at home. I think if we can maybe get 6-0 and 5-0 right there, that would be huge. Then we got to go to Tennessee at Tennessee. If we can beat at Tennessee, and then this is a tough grade 3-game stretch. I'm just being honest. At Tennessee, having Missouri at home. Missouri is going to be a sneaky team. And at LSU, I think if we can manage those games, and then playing Mercer, then we got to go to Oklahoma and have Auburn at home. I think we can manage that. So listen, we need to obviously beat Auburn and all these teams, but we've got to beat Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, and Oklahoma. If we can protect home, that means we beat Georgia. We've got to be at Tennessee, at LSU, and at Oklahoma. We've got to beat all three of those schools, if not on the road. We need to be going 2 out of 3. I do think we can get LSU. That's just a different animal. And going to Oklahoma, catching them late, them being in the SEC, I think we can get that one. But if we can really lock on and beat Tennessee, that would be huge springboard for us winning the SEC West and getting to the championship. So, listen, I think we can do it. I think we can do it. So, but yeah, I think to your point, I think I want Alabama to beat Tennessee, especially. Listen, Tennessee, they have just taken this rivalry to new levels. Like they're playing Dixieland Delight, and they always say, "Oh, it's about Tennessee." I'm like, y'all aren't even playing this song. We've been playing this song for years since I was in college. That's been forever ago, it seems. So I don't know. They beat Alabama once, and they just become so like, I guess. I don't want to say arrogant, annoying almost, but Vol fans, I love you. That's just that third Saturday in October. It's a robbery. That's what we do. But yeah, it is what it is. So I'm excited. We do. Those are some pivotal games. I said the Wisconsin's game is going to be pivotal. Georgia's game is going to be pivotal. Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma. I think if we handle at Tennessee and handle Georgia at home and handle at Wisconsin, I think those 3 games will help settle Missouri at home, at LSU, and at Oklahoma. And I think that will set us up for a lot of success under Coach KD's first year. So I think we could do that. So let's get to your comments. Y'all are rocking and rolling in the chat. Let's see. B. Jamin says, if UGA is ranked number 1, then that game isn't as critical, although it is at home. I really want to win that game, though. I want Alabama to go 12-0. That's what we do here in Alabama. And I'm quite sure Coach Katie, with his winning percentage, he's not looking to losing game or say we're not good enough. He doesn't roll like that. So I'm with you on that. I want us to beat Georgia. That's going to be the biggest game of the year, especially we coming off a big time victory at Madison, Wisconsin 2 weeks prior to that. That's going to be a big time game. So, everybody's going to be at the game. College game day, all that good stuff. It's going to be interesting. So hopefully both of us are undefeated. And listen, when Alabama and Georgia gets together, it's going to be Georgia. They're going to be one to do their best to beat Alabama. So it's going to be interesting to see. T. Rob's over there. We beat them the first time. Last year in the SEC championship. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I want us to beat Georgia. Living in Georgia, I want us to beat everybody. So, great comment, B. Jammin. Stephen Hicks, man, I love his content. He does a great job. He says, and Coach DeBoer called Stephen Hicks. He said he got something special for Teletubby, Kirby, and Brian Dana. I believe so. I think what's going to happen, Coach Saban's going to really kind of mold KD into understanding SEC football and how you got to win, how you got to be physical, how you got to dominate. Yeah, you can put up points, but you got to be able to run the ball and just milk the clock. And I think we do that. We get past that Georgia game, that's going to help us moving forward. So Stephen Hicks always taking shots. being sarcastic right here. It says, Matt, can we tear down Tennessee goalposts after we win? Yeah, we should be able to tear them down and throw them in the Tennessee River on our flight out of Knoxville once we beat the Vols. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. B. Jamin says, listen, Nico who? Yeah, I think Nico Lemavela. I think it's a lot of iffy quarterback play in the SEC. I think our quarterback room is actually one of the better QB rooms in the country. So I think that's what's going to help make our offense that much better. So I'm gonna be excited to see. So I know we talked a little bit of NFL, but I want to discuss Alabama players in the combine. Dallas Turner, he's performing. Chris Braswell, all those guys. Jermaine Burton. The NFL combine in NFL in Indianapolis doesn't have the same type of. I know a lot of the players opting out for their pro days. I know it's just the world we live in, but I think it's a good opportunity for other players. You're going to have all NFL front office personnel talking, interacting, discussing the draft, potential trades. But Jermaine Burton, I think if he has a really good combine, he could do well. I think if he can run in the 4.4s, I think he's got the route running, all that good stuff. Burton, he could be huge. I think he could propel himself up draft boards. Chris Braswell, I think he did perform really well in the Senior Bowl. Now, if he does amazing in the combine, I wouldn't be surprised he kind of being maybe that fifth player coming off the board in the first round. You look at teams later in the draft. You look at a Baltimore Ravens. You look at maybe a Kansas City Chiefs. They could utilize an edge rusher like that. Maybe Detroit Lions. I think Detroit's kind of locked and loaded, but they like to draft best player on the board. So I think players like Jermaine Burton, Chris Braswell can do numbers. I think it's going to be important for guys like what's our defensive lineman? I'm drawing the blank. Who had the neck injury last year, but he performed in the Super Senior Bowl. I think it's going to be important for him to really clear his medicals. So it's going to be interesting to see. So I think, you look at guys, I think Dallas Turner is really going to solidify himself in the first round. You look at Terrion Arnold, really think if he runs anything like which I'm predicting he's going to run like a 4.3. I think Kool-Aid is going to get in the 4.3s. I think they're going to just solidify themselves in the interview room, in the draft room, in their stock. So you're looking at guys like Terrion Arnold probably in the first corner off the board. Kool-Aid probably right behind him. I mean, Kool-Aid's tape, I know Terrion had the most picks and all that stuff, but Kool-Aid's tape, having to go against the top DB, I mean, it's just unreal. I'm talking about man. So I just think Kool-Aid, Terrion Arnold, Dallas Turner, J.C. Latham is going to really, I think he can separate himself in the combine, posting good numbers, looking fluid, looking powerful, continue the offensive line tradition. I think those guys can make waves for themselves. I mentioned Braswell, I mentioned Burton, Justin Mbogby. That's who I was mentioning. If he can clear his medicals, do really well, I think he's going to push himself because he performed really well in the Senior Bowl. So that's my take. But listen, I'm going to get more into NFL talk next week. I'm kind of probably have my preliminary quarterback rankings, especially coming off the combine, give you my thoughts on who I think is going to be the top quarterback on the board. Thanks for joining. B. Jammin, Farrell Caddell, Stephen Hicks, Joe Stapleton, Lori Caddell. Who else was in the chat? Y'all are rocking and rolling. Y'all just great in the student section. Let's get one last comment before at least the NFL, at least you got a better idea of players on team rosters. Unlimited portal jumping has college fans not knowing who will be on the team year to year. I agree. You would never know. So I think that's why I said I think the NCAA probably will not have any power. If anything, they're going to be collaborating with the power. The Congresses kind of get some type of control on portal, NIL, salary cap. You got to have different types of things. We're going to discuss it more here on the
Football University with me, Matt Caddell. So tune in next week. Bring a friend. Get in the student section. I love you all's comments. Y'all know how to make it happen. Shouts out to B Jamming. We're going to end on here. He says, fastest hour on YouTube. Great show and talk, Matt and chat. RMFT, roll tide. And listen, we'll do it. Tune in next time. Enjoy your week. Have a great week. And tune in next time. Same channel, same time here on the CTS Sports Room with Football University with me. And I'm looking forward to talk more football, more NFL draft talk next week with you. Have a great week. Peace.